Please call the roll.
Fish.
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Saltzman.
Here.
Novick.
Here.
Hales.
Before I ask the clerk to read the matter at hand, I have a little script I'm going to read. Mayor Hales is out of the country and sends his regrets, and as the president of the council, I have the honor of chairing the committee. Purpose of council meetings is the orderly consideration of the public's business. Preservation of order and decorum is necessary for due consideration of matters before the council. The public is welcome to attend council meetings, and we welcome everyone here who's here today. During the meetings, there will be time-limited opportunities for public comment on the agenda item. Although that doesn't apply, we ask you to confine your comments to the matter before us this afternoon. All you have to do is put your name in the record. You don't need your address, and for those of you who've testified in Salem, you do not have to address any member of the council as you make your comments. If you're a lobbyist, please disclose that information at the start of your testimony. If you are here representing an organization, please disclose that as well. Because we have, I'm told, 30 or more people here who want to testify, each community member this afternoon will be given 2 minutes to speak in front of the council. And there's a light and a buzzer that goes off as you get close to the end, and at 2 minutes it starts flashing like crazy, and you'll be asked to stop. And the reason we ask you to honor the time limits is that we want to be able to make sure that we can hear from everybody that's here. And if you go over the allotted time, it might prevent someone from testifying. If you have a handout with you today, and probably some of you do, please give the handout to Carla, our council clerk, and she will distribute them to the council and make sure it's a formal part of the record. And by the way, if you want your written testimony to be part of the record, you're free to email it to us, and we'll make sure it goes into the record. Council rules of procedures are designed to maintain public order and to assure that council deliberations proceed efficiently and that all those who participate have a chance to be heard. Conduct that disrupts the meeting, for example, shouting during someone's testimony or interrupting testimony or deliberation, simply cannot be permitted. We'd ask that you show your support or your displeasure with your hands, but not your words. And this is technically constitutes a warning that anyone disrupting this proceeding may be asked to leave. With that, I'd like to ask Carla if she could read the sole time-certain item that we'll be taking up this afternoon.
Item 141, vacate a portion of North Lombard Street between North Richmond Avenue and North Charleston Avenue, subject to certain conditions and reservations.
Commissioner Steve Novick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I ask Kurt Kruger and Lance Lindahl and Teresa Montalvo from PBOT to begin a presentation explaining the rationale behind this vacation, I want to thank the architect of the project associated with vacation and the community members who are joining us here today. Alan Jones, the architect, Fareed Boulori, the property owner, Lindsay Jensen from St. John's Main Street, Seamus Linsky, vice chair of the St. John's Neighborhood Association, Barbara Quinn from Friends of Baltimore Woods, and John Tepley, who I believe is in the audience representing Save Ivy Island. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to educate the council on the street vacation proposal. And again, I want to thank PBOT staff, Kurt, Lance, and Teresa for their work, and I'd like to ask them up to give their presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Lance Lindahl, PBOT right-of-way acquisition. Before you today is a proposal to vacate 5,005 square feet of North Lombard Street. This street vacation was initiated by the Bureau of Transportation on behalf of property owner St. John 5 LLC and its owner, Mr. Fareed Boulori. A mixed-use commercial development with apartments will be constructed on their parcels to the north. All of the right-of-way being vacated will revert back to them and will become taxable property. This project includes 103 market rate apartment units and 20,000 square feet of ground floor retail and office space. A total of 89 parking spots will be constructed, with all but 13 of these located underground. The project also includes 126 bike parking stalls and 2 formal pedestrian plazas with a total of 9,535 square feet that will be constructed at the developer's expense and open for public use. The existing landscape area at this intersection, known as Ivy Island, will be removed in order to make room for the reconfigured North Lombard Street. A new formal pedestrian plaza of comparable size will be built within the remaining public right-of-way. and that's located to the northeast of the current Ivy Island. The existing St. John's Gateway sign will be relocated to this new plaza. Approval of this vacation will support a number of safety improvements at this intersection. PBOT, ODOT, and the developer have worked together to redesign this segment of street so that it's safer for all modes of traffic. On November 17th of last year, the Planning and Sustainability Commission held a public hearing and voted unanimously to support the vacation. The commission added a condition of approval that a tree mitigation plan be completed and forwarded to the urban forester for review. This condition has been met. 9 black locust trees with a total of 77 caliper inches are currently located within Ivy Island, and these will be removed during construction. Per urban forestry, new street trees being added will satisfy all Title 11 density requirements for tree planting. At this point, I'd like to turn the pedestrian over to Kurt Kruger from PBOT Development Review.
Good afternoon, City Council, President Fish. It's important that I present a little bit of history for this context, both the conversations.
Sure. Of course, we know who you are, but please put your name in the record.
All right. Kurt Kruger with Portland Bureau of Transportation. I want to set a little context of why we got here, how we got here today, and then walk the council through a little bit of legislative history that this council has with St. John. So if you'll bear with me, I want to thank the architect and development team that has been overly cooperative with us for over a year. This project came to us, and I'll give you a site plan to let you start orient yourself with the area. This applicant approached the city with a development application just about a year ago. One of my new staff, Teresa Montalvo, started her review of that, came across the St. John's Lombard plan and weighed that project versus what was before us today and identified that there was a designated public improvement project that was called for it as part of the Lombard plan. And that included a pedestrian improvement, a pedestrian safety improvement, potential public plaza, and removal of a slip lane through St. John's off of North Lombard. So we discussed that internally, decided it would be advantageous to at least call the developer in, have a meeting with the developer and suggest, would they be willing to slow their project down or essentially almost stop it while we looked at whether a street vacation was possible. The developer went back, looked things over, came back to us and said, I think we're supportive of this. There's a public benefit here. We think this would be a good move for us to make. Knowing that they were supportive, we thought the next appropriate thing would be to reach out to the neighborhood and Main Street and Business District. So we invited them in, and in your packet presentation that I've handed out is a sign-in sheet from that meeting in last March. There was support there. The applicant continued to work back and forth with the neighborhood and Business District, gaining additional support as the project design evolved. Concurrently, we ran the street vacation with the applicant through the city's process that led us here today. So what I wanted to do was walk you through a few elements of the St. John Lombard plan to see that this wasn't just a crazy idea of PBOT looking for a developer to fix a traffic safety problem. There was an intentional plan that was laid out that was many exhaustive hours of neighborhood involvement in putting this plan together that ultimately came to City Council in 2004. I know it may be difficult to read this, but essentially this is the plan summary for the Lombard plan. And one of the things it identified, item number 2, was balancing some transportation improvements. I'll read from that. It says, balanced transportation improvements designed to improve circulation and safety of pedestrians, bicyclists, vehicles, and transit users. The improvements emphasize a better pedestrian environment while facilitating traffic flow and freight movement in a way that furthers the area's livability. This is just an outline describing the St. John's process to adopt this plan. This came to the Planning Commission. Before it was the Planning and Sustainability Commission approximately 5 times. It went to the Portland Design Commission and ultimately came to City Council for a vote.
What year was that?
2004. This intersection was specifically studied, analyzed in that plan. There were 3 alternatives. I'll present all 3 just briefly, but the preferred plan is essentially what you'll see today from the developer. It was closing the slip lane, developing a plaza, making an intersection improvement, and making it safe for pedestrians. And this was identified as the preferred option as it was the most safe improvement from a pedestrian standpoint. 2 additional alternatives were considered, and I won't dwell on this, but I just want to mention that in the language that you can't quite read at the bottom of each of those exhibits describes that these alternatives are not as safe for the pedestrian as preferred alternative 1. There was still a concern about pedestrian safety in those two plans. Further into that St. John's Lombard plan, it talks about transportation actions and the timing that would result moving forward. Obviously, you guys are aware of PBOT's financial struggles and limited dollars to move capital projects forward. But at the time, it was identified that this intersection improvement would occur within 5 years of adoption. That would have been approximately 2009. Again, here's additional language that talks about implementing tools for the specific. I won't read from this, but it again describes the importance of making these pedestrian improvements and maintaining orderly flow in the area. Real quickly, this project also went through the City of Portland's Bureau of Development Services design review process. This was a type 2 application. It was a staff review. Notice went out to the neighborhood. There was a reason for a second notice that went out later last summer. It went through the design process. Comment period was opened. The site was posted. Notification went out to property owners surrounding the area as well as the required neighborhood and district coalition and business district. So that's essentially my presentation. I'm happy to take questions now. There will be questions that will certainly arise from testimony today. But I, again, want to reiterate that this developer, every time a question had come up or a new ask came forward, including a new signal reconstruction, as we discussed this with ODOT, the applicant has said yes, yes, and yes. And I can tell you in my day-to-day operations, that is a rare thing that we see that much of a willingness from a developer to stall a project and continue to accept asks of the city.
Kurt, we have about 30 or so people that want to testify. I understand we have another panel. My intent is to have us keep a running list of questions that come up and then ask you and your team to come back at the end of the testimony to answer questions of the council.
Thank you.
Commissioner Novak? Okay. Dan?
You had, on that last slide, you had appeal in parentheses Multnomah County. What does that mean?
And the applicant can talk to this a little more than I probably can, but there was some issues around shared parking with the library adjacent to the site. And so that issue had not been worked out and resolved. And unfortunately, appeal was filed until that issue was resolved.
Thank you.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the pedestrian safety issues you see with the current configuration?
Certainly. I can say in full disclosure, the city of Portland, in today's way of designing streets, would never design an intersection like this today. This was a slip lane that had a streetcar component many, many years ago, but essentially it is a slip lane off of a state highway, a Lombard. There is no safe pedestrian crossing across that side of Lombard if you were a pedestrian continuing along Ivy Island across the street to the north and along Lombard. You're exposed to vehicles that may exit Lombard at whatever speed they may be at Lombard because they're not controlled at an intersection. So this proposal actually removes that slip lane and forces pedestrians to remain on a designated built sidewalk to an intersection with a controlled signalization that makes it safe for pedestrians to cross.
Thank you.
And could you just define what a slip lane is?
How would I
Is
describe
it a
this?
shortcut?
It's almost like an off-ramp. I hate to kind of compare it to if you were on I-5 south and wanted to take an exit off to 217 or any other interstate avenue. That's what you would do is you take an off-ramp exit. That's the way this functioned. It's actually should importantly note that James John Elementary School is just immediately adjacent to this site. Vehicles that leave Lombard continue on past this slip lane across the intersection before they reach a stopping point for pedestrians to cross.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question about the planning sustainability recommendation regarding withdrawing the northeastern portion of the vacation area from the proposal. Could you show us on that map what was meant by that? What was the previous proposal?
Again, probably
Describe it.
maybe better described from the applicant. There were some private negotiations that were occurring. So there was originally two street vacations proposed with this application. There was an adjacent property who was not part of the vacation today, who would have likely been the beneficiary of some of this land reverting back to them. In all of our years of doing street vacations, it's usually very clear who would retain or where the property would return once it's vacated. In a lot of hours of research, both in our right-of-way section and with the county, we could not quite definitively determine who would get what piece of land back. And so there was some negotiations. There was a private sign that was in this right away that were part of a negotiation, and that negotiation fell apart as this project moved to the Planning and Sustainability Commission. So it was in the best interest to withdraw that piece of the application and let it remain in right away.
It's not clear which bit was withdrawn.
It's a triangular area on the right-hand side of the project there on the west, or should be east.
Is that on Exhibit 3, the second triangular shape?
We actually didn't call it out. If you can see the cursor on here, it's essentially in this area in here.
Yeah, so that one is going
Vegetated
to
area.
stay.
That will still
In
remain
right-of-way.
as right away.
Yeah.
And is there some kind of a covenant? Is there anything that to restrict that the vacated area will be a plaza rather than be covered with building?
So they could not, they would have to apply for a permit to build a building in the right of way, which we would not approve.
But in the vacated part, it's not right of way anymore.
Correct. So
So in that, is there anything to stop a building being built or the applicant from changing the footprint of their proposed building to now take advantage of the vacated area? How do
yes,
we
and I
know-
think, yes,
How do we know we're going to get a plaza, in other words?
I think you'll see that in the development proposal that's going to come alongside this. They've got exhibits showing the public plaza. It was conditioned as part of the design review application. So we've got the tools necessary to implement the plaza.
So it doesn't need to be a condition. Well, wait a minute, though. Supposing they then withdrew that plan completely, and they've got their street vacation, they come back with a different plan that's got building all the way to the edge.
They would have to go back through and amend their design review approval right now, because that design
Right,
review
but at
approval
that
is
point, we would have
contingent
given
on.
away the right-of-way, right? Is there a way for us to condition the street vacation on it remaining plaza rather than building?
May I take that question back and think on that as we're taking testimony?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Steve?
Thank you. I believe the first presentation of invited testimony is from the architect, Alan Jones.
Hi, Alan Jones, Jones Architecture.
Reed Bulurid, owner developer.
Christy White, land use attorney for the developer.
Go ahead and start with your introduction.
I want to thank you for your time. We applied for an early assistant about a year ago, and original plan did not include any vacation. And then the city approached us and asking if we're willing to listen to the St. John's Lombard plan. And redesigning basically the entire design that we had earlier on. After thoughtful consideration, we decided that that's a good idea, and we decided to go with the vacation. We went to the drawing board, and the new design that you see is what we have come up with. Working with PBOT and the city of Portland for over a year, we considered all the public and the safety improvements that this project is going to bring to the neighborhood. And you might ask yourself, why would the developer want to go through all the headache of vacation and postponing a project for a year? It makes our project a better project. It helps the neighborhood, and I'm not your typical developer who builds and turns it around and walks away. So we took a lot of pride in this project, and I think it's going to do really well. We had numerous meetings with the neighborhood association and also with the business association. Numerous meetings, I think we had a total of 4 meetings. A lot of people came in, they gave us great ideas, and we tried to incorporate those ideas into our plan as best as possible. We have a letter of supports from the business association and also from the neighborhood association. And all the cost is going to be paid by me, if you will. And that's pretty much what I would like to say.
Kurt and Lance did a great job showing you the site, but on your screen,
Could you
there's
put your name in the record, sir?
Alan Jones, Jones Architecture. there's a site map or a context map, an aerial photo on your screen. The site is indicated, as Kurt and Lant mentioned, it's right at the intersection where Highway 30, or Lombard Way, as it's also known, meets Lombard Street of downtown. So it really is a gateway site. It's kind of the entrance into St. John's. Also noted on this slide that we've labeled James John Elementary School, and Multnomah County Library is directly to the north. As Kurt and Lance mentioned, we are implementing a portion of the St. John's Lombard Plan. This intersection has 3 objectives to it that we took directly out of the St. John's Lombard Plan. The first objective is a stronger gateway to the business district. Number 2 is to calm traffic. And 3 is to enhance safety for children and pedestrians crossing Lombard. So there's 2 key pieces to that. There's a public space piece, which are the plazas that we talked about, the plaza that's on the corner, and then the secondary plaza that will be built under the encroachment permit. Then there's the public safety features, which are the reorganization of the intersection, which involves 4 new traffic signals and new pedestrian crossings. Took a couple of quotes here directly out of the Lombard Plan that we think really applies to this. As was mentioned, this was the traffic island was from an earlier era where it was more of a auto-centric world, so to speak. It really was a slip lane, really is a slip lane. It is like a highway spur. It's about the automobile, buses, and trucks leaving the highway as they enter into St. John's. What the St. John's Lombard Plan aimed to do was to extend the pedestrian district all the way to Highway 30, to build a stronger sidewalk system and to put plazas on the corner and to mark the gateway into St. John's. So a couple of quotes here are, pedestrian-oriented retail centers linked by tree-lined sidewalks featuring attractive housing land uses that serve the peninsula. It's also a place where people are comfortable walking on streets and spending time in public spaces. Its appealing sidewalk environment is accentuated by small community gathering spaces, an array of retailers, restaurants, and services. And at the bottom here, we understand that one of Mayor Hale's priorities is to develop what he calls complete neighborhoods. So we think that implementing this piece of the St. John's Lombard Plan is an opportunity to do that. It really completes St. John's and extends the district to the east all the way to Highway 30 and makes a strong entrance into St. John's, increases public safety, rebuilds the neighborhood, and provides an opportunity for public space. So this slide shows the vacated area. As Lance mentioned, it's 5,005 square feet. So I'll talk about some of the specific safety features first. As you can see, the slip lane has arrows that show the slip lane or the highway spur that come westbound off of Lombard Way or the highway into St. John's. And currently, traffic leaves St. John's eastbound heading one way out of St. John's back to the highway. The slip lane and that one-way eastbound are separated by a traffic island. What the vacation would allow is that traffic island to be relocated, pushed to the north, and attached to the block that's to the north so that we can make a public plaza on the corner and we can rebuild the intersection and put in pedestrian crossings. So there's 2 diagrams here. The diagram on the left these are traffic diagrams. The diagram on the left shows there's red boxes on these diagrams that indicate intersections or the traffic signals. In the existing condition, the first intersection that you come to is west of James John Elementary School. So cars, buses, and trucks that are leaving Lombard Way or the highway pass by this site through the slip lane. They speed past James John Elementary School before they come to any kind of traffic slowing measures whatsoever. On the right is the proposed plan with the rebuilt intersection with a dedicated right-hand turn lane, a new bike lane, and pedestrian crossing. So fast-moving traffic stops at the new intersection and then moves in a slow rate of speed past the site as it enters St. John's and past the elementary school. I have 3 photos here that were taken recently, and these are taken about 3 p.m. after school gets out at Jamestown Elementary School. This first image is a pedestrian that's peeking around the slip lane, trying to evaluate whether he has time to dash across the street between cars because there are no pedestrian crossings whatsoever at this point. This slide shows a father and a daughter leaving the elementary school, heading across Lombard. And if you look behind the bus, there's another pedestrian back there with a red arrow over him that's also kind of bobbing and weaving through traffic, through vehicles that are going in 4 different directions here with no pedestrian crossings. And a mother and a daughter running across the intersection, and then the green arrows show cars moving in 3 different directions. So the new traffic, or the new intersection will have the arms that are indicated in red are new traffic safety poles that have new traffic heads on them, that all of the expense of this is at Mr. Bellari's expense, and it's quite an expensive endeavor, but putting up new traffic signals on all 4 poles. In addition to that, there's new crosswalks that cross over both the highway and Lombard Street, new pedestrian poles with buttons that the pedestrians can push to cross the streets. So next I'll talk about the public space. This is the ground story or the site plan for the project. It is a mixed-use building. It is a 4-story building. The ground story has approximately 20,000 square feet of flexible space in it. It's broken down into small increments that could be used by local retailers and restaurants and cafes. There's also some opportunities for some office space. But the important thing about this slide is it shows the 3 plazas. There's a plaza on the corner, which we've labeled Plaza 1, where the building is pulled back. The building's been broken down into 3 modules, so it's not a big monolithic building. It's broken down into individual bays. Those bays pull back at different depths from the sidewalk in order to make Plaza 1. Plaza 2 is the area that was described as the right-of-way encroachment development. Courtyard number 3 is on private property. When we went back to the drawing board originally, the building was a completely different shape configuration. We completely reconfigured the building to open up to these plazas, and we created this courtyard plaza that opens up to Plaza 2. In total, there's 9,500 square feet of new plaza area completely open to the public, no barriers to entry whatsoever. That's nearly twice the area of the vacation area.
Sir, off this proposed site plan,
Yeah.
Where is the access to the parking stalls?
So on the top left, which would be the north corner off North Charleston, there's an area there in yellow, which is a ramp to the basement. So we worked closely, Kittleson got involved, we look at the trip generation and make sure that location would be okay. Charleston is the side of the project that has it's the furthest away from the public streets, and it was identified as the best place for a driveway.
So before we move from that slide,
Yep.
Plaza 2 is still public right-of-way, right?
Correct.
So what is the plaza area without Plaza 2?
I have a slide that I can flip to next that'll show you that. So,
Okay, and just before you flip through
Yep.
it, where do you envision the Welcome to St. John's sign going?
on Plaza 2. So the thought, we've been working closely with the Boosters here, the group that owns the sign. The thought being that currently the St. John's sign is on the traffic island, so kind of after you arrive in St. John's. The great thing about this opportunity is that the St. John's sign comes prior to the intersection on that plaza. So it will be in the right-of-way on Plaza 2. So here's a slide that shows you a little bit more about Plaza 1. Before I start here, I'll say that we had a long dialogue and worked really closely with Jeff Mitchum, who is the planner on this project for BDS. And there was a long discussion about how large this plaza should be. And in the CS zone, 50% of the building is required to be directly on the sidewalk. So we only have 1/3 of the building on the sidewalk, so we had to seek a modification to push the building back in order to create this plaza, which obviously was a good modification to get. But there was a discussion just about how far the building should be pushed back. And currently, or what was proposed and what was approved is 40 feet from the curb at the corner, and then it steps down at the next module to 28 feet.
How wide is the sidewalk?
Sidewalk's 12. So this plaza, not including the sidewalk, is 3,190 square feet. This is a rendering of Plaza 1 from the intersection. You'll see that we're showing a piece of public art. There's room for public art on the corner. We've also have benches and planters that will help buffer, because there is a lot of traffic on Highway 30 and at Lombard at this point. And the thought is that in order to make pedestrians comfortable on the plaza, that we need a little bit of buffering. So there's concrete planters with benches on them. Plaza number 2 in the courtyard. Plaza number 2 is the area that's the right-of-way encroachment. That's 2,815 square feet. The courtyard plaza, which is entirely on private property but is completely open for the public to use, is 3,500 square feet. We had 4 meetings, as Fareed mentioned, with the neighborhood. Well, 2 meetings with the neighborhood associations and 2 meetings with Main Street, and there was a lot of discussion about the design of these plazas. What was finally concluded is that there was a desire to have this be as flexible as possible so that ideally there would not be a lot of built pieces in the middle of the plaza, that it could be used as a Saturday market or other things. So we've kind of buffered the perimeter of it with trees and planters and benches in order to buffer the street, but left the center of it as open as possible. Here's a rendering of Plaza 2 and the courtyard showing one potential use with a farmer's market type tents. As was mentioned, there was a tree mitigation plan that Urban Forestry looked at and approved. There are a total of 9 trees on the traffic island, as Lance mentioned. They're black locust, total of 77 caliper inches. We're proposing to put back 32 trees. We have as many trees as possible. We've worked with PDOT and ODOT to put as many street trees as possible around the site, as well as a lot of new trees in the plazas and in the parking lot. So that wraps it up. This rendering shows the new St. John's, the location for the new St. John's sign in that plaza.
I'm just curious, you mentioned in one of the earlier slides that the developer was going to put some, quote, public art.
Yeah.
We tend to think of public art as art that the Regional Arts and Culture Council or some body places. Are you referring to just a piece of art that he's going to acquire and place in a public right-of-way?
Yeah, we're not proposing to go through the rack process on this. We're proposing to put a piece of art in that area.
And you have a restaurant penciled in there as a potential use in the mixed use. Is it part of your plan to potentially allow them to have outdoor space, outdoor seating in the summer?
We think it would be ideal for the public to coexist with restaurant use on that plaza. The plaza is large enough to have at least one line of tables that are up close to the building. We think that the building can activate the plaza and the sidewalk can activate the plaza as well, and that it all would work together. But the intent is, yes, that there hopefully would be some room out in that space for a few tables and chairs for the restaurants.
And does this rendering, which you've given to us, does this reflect decisions which the developers made about the kind of brick, the color schemes, and the design? I mean, is this?
This is what's been approved by design review. So there are 3 colors of brick on the building. It's a very high quality building with nice materials. It's all brick, nice windows, nice storefront.
Colleagues, questions? Steve, do we have another panel?
We do, but before that, Christy, I have to tell you that Kurt Kruger wants to discuss with you a potential amendment to the ordinance in order to address Commissioner Fritz's concern. And I hope that you could reach agreement on such a thing.
Yeah, no objection at
Before
all.
we, okay.
Yeah.
You already know what it is?
I'm imagining that what you want to do is some extra condition that ensures that it retains plaza. use,
Okay,
so
if the
no
two of you
objection.
could, ideally, if the two of you could
Yeah.
agree on some language before we get through the invited testimony, so we can put the amendment on the table before we get to public testimony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So the next panel is Lindsay Jensen, Seamus Linsky, and Barbara Quinn.
Barbara, if you come to one more hearing this week,
I was just saying
you get a
that.
door prize.
I know. This is 2 days in a row. She's a
Weird.
professional.
Who's
It's very
first?
weird. Go ahead. I'll go first. My name's Lindsay Jensen. I'm the executive director for St. John's Main Street. And we are obviously here to show our support for the street vacation of the traffic berm. We are intimately connected to this space because our office is located at the corner of Lombard and Charleston, and because we've also been the primary drivers behind the revitalization efforts of this island. Daily, I count the number of honks and sounds of screeching tires outside of our office. We're so excited to have safe crossings for our volunteers and for our staff. I know that our neighbors, that those who are directly connected to the traffic island also feel the same way. They want the traffic berm gone. The berm is an auto-centric gateway to our business district, and it was designed in the 70s, an era that valued cars and automobiles. It does not promote walkability and invites cars to barrel into our downtown business district at dangerous speeds. We have a unique opportunity for a private developer to invest in our neighborhood and to create a vibrant, active, and pedestrian-centric gateway that features usable public space, trees and native plants, and our iconic St. John's marquee. The reconfiguration would enliven our side of the business district, which currently feels a little dead, quite honestly, with fewer businesses, less activity, and fast-moving traffic. I just don't see how keeping the traffic berm would address these issues and enliven that space. This is such a great opportunity to fulfill the city's vision of creating complete neighborhoods and to enhance our Main Street area. So much planning and time and thoughtful consideration has gone into reimagining this intersection. Between the time spent on the Lombard plan and recent community meetings where the developer met and sought input from the community, there has been ample opportunities to weigh in. My heart slightly sinks thinking about how much energy has gone into fighting this proposal, particularly in the 11th hour. I appreciate the passion and creativity, but would much rather see our neighborhood up in arms about affordable housing, something that would directly combat displacement in St. John's. This development is positioned in the URA and could qualify for the new multi-program at the Housing Bureau. If you as a council are going to push back or leverage this vacation for additional community benefits, I would urge you to put affordable housing at the top of that agenda.
Commissioner Sullivan's eyes light up.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. My name is Barbara Quinn. I'm an activist in St. John's, long time. Actually, I worked on the St. John's Plan 2004. That was 3 long years of many, many hours planning. And the reason we worked on that so hard was because we wanted to avoid conflict in the future and have a vision that we could develop in the future in a way that St. John's neighbors would like. And prime among our considerations was the development of a pedestrian district, a pleasant, safe place for people to walk and visit shops and see into the corridor. And the reason that we came up and suggested the removal of the blind curb was mainly for safety, but also a reconfiguration that would allow drivers to see into the corridor and actually see our shops and help the pedestrian district develop. So this plan was fully vetted in North Portland among all the neighborhood association, all the existing business associations, including the St. John's Boosters, who had a representative at our meetings. There is no way to address pedestrian safety with this blind curb without its removal. There just isn't a good way to make a blind curb safe. People just can't see those people crossing until they're 20 feet away from them, and they're zooming off of that main corridor at a pretty high rate of speed. So safety is the first and most important characteristic of a pedestrian district. Beauty and design don't count as high as safety, and we need that. So the adjacent school makes it even more important. If St. John's is going to become more dense, density should be located in the town center to help the shops. That is one of the things that came up during the plan, is that we don't quite have enough density to support an 11-block Main Street. So removal of Ivy Island should not become an icon for gentrification. Gentrification is a huge and important issue in our neighborhood that needs to be addressed, but this is about safety, and this is about a development that fits the St. John's plan. I'm thrilled because I think the plazas are going to be a real plus for the neighborhood. They are going to look good. I think there's a lot of interest in eating outside near the shops now. That didn't happen 10 years ago. There was nobody who wanted to be outside in St. John's 10 or 15 years ago. So it's a really positive thing for us. The developer and architect did inquire about providing some native trees for the St. John or the Baltimore Wood corridor in St. John's, and it turns out our partner said that we're maxed out. So they at least tried to reach out to us, and we appreciated that. Once again, I just really feel that if we could get past the polarizing language here, that it's possible there could be some kind of discussion and communication. This project could possibly become better if both sides could talk to each other. without the polarizing language and a discussion with the developer, I think some of the qualities that people really like about the island could possibly be moved to these plazas. And I think that would be a real plus. And things like that have happened in the past in St. John's. It has happened, and sometimes things end up being better. So that's my hope for this project, that this energy will move it forward in a better way.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
My name is Seamus Linsky, and I'm involved in a lot of groups in St. John's, including the vice chair of the Neighborhood Association. So I'm here today to urge City Council to approve the street vacation at North Lombard and North Richmond. There's been a deep history of public outreach and public involvement in this project. First with the original St. John's Lombard plan that was years and hours of public time, volunteer time. And these are the safety improvements that are called for in the St. John's Lombard plan. This is the preferred treatment of that intersection. The safety improvements here are consistent with City Council's own Vision Zero. The developer presented to the Neighborhood Association this specific design 2 times. He presented with groups organized by Main Street 2 times. It's been discussed and discussed and discussed. The community members in attendance showed overwhelming support for the proposed intersection improvements. The developers have been very cooperative and open to feedback. And the bonus here, of course, is that the developer is going to pay for these improvements. So it's saving the taxpayers a lot of money. I understand that those in opposition to the street vacation are anxious about growth in St. John's, about rising rent, home prices, about traffic safety and traffic congestion. I share those anxieties. But I have observed that a lot of the language that's against this specific street vacation for this traffic island get confused with the sort of anti-development and anxieties of large buildings and increased traffic. They're separate issues. So again, I'd like to urge City Council to approve this street vacation so that the neighborhood could focus on those more important issues. Thank you.
Is that your last panel?
Yes, it is.
Commissioner Novick, thank you all. I've just conferred with your PBOT reps. They are in the process of wordsmithing some language. They're confident they will get an amendment. They would like a little extra time to get the wordsmithing. So what I'm going to suggest is we will effectively treat the amendment as being on the table. So the proposal that we will be taking up is to have a covenant. There's some legal language which is being worked out. If anyone would like to testify about whether they like that idea of some restrictive covenant on the plaza, please address that item. And when the amendment's drafted, we'll bring it to account. We'll bring it forward this afternoon for a consideration.
And that's okay with the city attorney to approach it
Yes.
that way?
Thank you. Carla, how many people have signed up?
I believe we have 27 left now.
27. We're going to ask everyone to try to stay within 2 minutes. And for those of you who may be first-time testifiers, I know we have some people here who have been here before, I just want to say that this council is very interested in what you have to say. We rarely make a decision based on, the fact that 20, 30 people say the same thing, the identical thing. So what we would encourage you to do is, if you have a strong view one way or another, state it. If there's something new that you want us to think about or you want to highlight, you're free to testify to anything you want, but in the time we have together, we'd like to hear as many interesting and different ideas that you have to say. But you'll have a full 2 minutes, and we're going to call people up. Sir, you look teed up with the boards. Why don't you kick us off?
Yes. Hello, my name is Peter Brown. I'm a resident of St. John's, and I'm here to speak against the proposed vacation of Ivy Island. The first thing I'd like to speak to is what I perceive to be a lack of public awareness that Ivy Island may be given away and developed. In my very limited free time, I've gone door to door in my neighborhood asking whether people would like to sign a petition to preserve Ivy Island. I talked to well over 100 people. Overwhelmingly, people have no idea that the public land might be given away. Since the demolition at the adjacent corner, many folks have some idea that development is coming. Most don't know a 4-story building is going to be built. None of them know that if Ivy Island is vacated, the proposed 4-story building is going to move on to and occupy much of Ivy Island, what is now public green space. At that point, they usually grab the signature petition out of my hand so they can sign immediately. As a consequence of this experience, I would like to say that the endorsement for this project of St. John's Main Street and Neighborhood Association is not representative of the community of St. John's, the 15,000 or so people who are immediately affected by the loss of Ivy Island. It's more the 10-person board of the Neighborhood Association that has decided to send a letter supporting the proposed vacation. The second point I'd like to mention is how the St. John's Lombard Plan has been used to justify the vacation of Ivy Island. The Lombard Plan was developed with extensive input from the St. John's community as well as the city. The point I would like to make is how different the proposed Valuri development is from the Lombard Plan. So I can just kind of hold these up. The only real similarity is that the slip lane would be removed. If you look at the image from the Lombard Plan and the proposed Valuri Plan, they are strikingly different. The Lombard Plan envisions a large open plaza with ample tree cover and easy pedestrian access from east to west. Specifically mentioned in the Lombard Plan are improved sightlines into the commercial core and pedestrian walkability. The proposed building would cut off the sightlines that currently exist into the commercial core and make east-west pedestrian use more difficult. I urge the council to vote no on the proposed vacation of Ivy Island. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Welcome, and may I just say I like your T-shirt.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was saying, I like your T-shirt too, but
She liked hers better. Okay, very good.
I like to volunteer with DPAVE, so I was just,
Yes. Ivy Island is a special green place for people in St. John's. It's named for the ground cover of English ivy that once covered it before University of Portland students and local citizens re-landscaped it with native bobs and Oregon grape, but no ivy. Importantly, there are nine mature trees, not native trees, but black locusts with their frilly leaves that allow sun to easily filter through. The leaves follow the island, decompose, and there's a couple of blocks from Ivy Island at St. John's Elementary School. Parents, kids, and businesses worked hard to dig up large sections of blacktop in the playground and repave with the help of DPAVE, which the city supports, and plant native trees and bushes. I worked for Friends of Baltimore Woods for 6 years and saw hundreds of volunteers in that corridor remove non-native plants and replant and care for native ones with the guidance of Solve, also supported by the city. On Ivy Island, we already have such a slice of nature. I believe the people of St. John's will think it a poor trade to transfer public land to private developer when they see a 4-story condominium in place of the island exchange. There is talk of building a plaza, but plazas are concrete, and we already have 2. I have faith that PBOT can calm traffic in the 2-block area when I see in Linton, across the river, what went from 50, 60 mile an hour traffic to 35 mile an hour without stoplights. As St. John's becomes more vertically developed, the value of this small piece of green open space will only increase. Give us pride in the place where we live and reminds us of the mystery of nature.
thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, President Dish, Commissioner Saltzman, Fritz, and Novick. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Babs Adamska, and I live in St. John's neighborhood. I'm testifying today in support of the vacation of the public property that's located on Lombard Street between Charleston and Richmond. I support this vacation to Fareed Valuri, specifically because of the traffic improvements that will be paid for by Mr. Valuri's development company. In crossing traffic at North Charleston at Lombard, the intersection is extremely dangerous whether you're on foot, on a bicycle, or in a car. The slip lane diminishes the sight line, and as illustrated earlier with slides, it's a very questionable thing to even attempt it at that point. Additionally, bus riders who deboard the TriMet 75 on the east side of the development at Richmond, heading south when they get off the bus, even at the beginning of that slip lane, it's angled in such a way that decisions are difficult to make for our driver who is headed west. And I have stood with an auditor from the National Highway Safety Commission who's looked at that and said that that is unsafe in that circumstance as well. I understand the complexity of issues that are involved with this development, but I feel strongly that it is particularly a safety issue. I've obtained 77 signatures on my own as I stood at the corner of Charleston and Lombard. And then just before today's meeting, some other signatures were given to me that were collected by businesses in that area. Thank you for your consideration of this matter specifically as a safety issue.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Carla, the next three.
are Kanchan Gokhel, Heather Bilyeu, and Chloe Frisella, and they'll be followed by Donna Cohen, Joe Adamski, and Silver Boo.
Welcome. You want to kick us off?
Hello, my name is Kanchan Gokhale, and I'm a resident of St. John's, and I'm here to testify against vacating Ivy Island. My husband and I moved to St. John's 4 years ago because we fell in love with the character, and St. John's is a complete neighborhood, is what I felt, with a gateway, a downtown, and a business district. And the downtown also has space for a beautiful farmer's market. About a month ago, I learned that there is a proposal to vacate Ivy Island and give it to the developer to extend his building into what is now a public space. What this will do is it will block the view of the main street into St. John's, and it will destroy the gateway to St. John's. When I heard this, I was really horrified. And the only way I found out about this, because I saw some people standing there with signs. There was no other announcement that I heard about this. When I learned about this, I tried to find out what prompted this, and I learned it was safety and the Lombard plan. When it comes to safety, I went and looked up this Vision Zero map that was mentioned earlier, and this intersection intersections are represented as little circles, and this one is a tiny little circle where there are so many others which are way bigger, which identify the areas which have high risk, and this circle is not even close to some of the other ones in St. John's. And also, if this was really a danger issue for safety, it hasn't warranted high enough signage in that area. And Lombard plan talks about 1 to 3 story building maintaining the identity and character of St. John's. There is no mention of giving up public space. It shows a plaza instead of building. I also went door to door, and none of the people I spoke to, except for a few, didn't even know that this was being considered, that Ivy Island would be vacated. I think if this happens, there will be a public outcry, and a lot of people who are not aware of what's going on will be really shocked if there are bulldozers on Ivy Island. So I really encourage you to vote no to give up this space and keep our identity and character. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you. Dear City Commissioners, my name is Heather Bilyeu. I am a concerned St. John's resident. I live very close to North Lombard and North Richmond, the proposed site of the Bellori development and vacation of public land known as Ivy Island. Some time ago, while I was a regular customer at Huck Lab, I heard the land and building were being sold and developed. I figured a new curved building would go in like Marvel 29 on the other side of town. Some months later, while eating at the local diner down the street, I heard the owner and other customers talking about how now the land was going to be given to the developer in exchange for a traffic light, and the slip lane would close and a 4-story building would go there. I was very surprised by what I heard because it was different from before. I was shocked, and I did not understand why the city would give away prime real estate and block the view of the St. John's Bridge from the public and close off the entrance to our town. The piece of land is beautiful and for everyone to enjoy. By then, the Huck Lab was closed, and a lot of people in town would ask me about it because I have their stickers all over my car. I would tell them what I heard and ask them if they knew anything. Nobody I encountered knew big changes were set to happen. I met John Templey a few months back, and he let me know, I met him a few months ago, and we happened to talk about our neighborhood and the changes taking place. It was he who let me know that, in fact, it was not set in stone that the land was being given to the developer. I joined with him to help save Ivy Island. Our group held a town hall meeting to discuss the proposed development. It seemed now that safety was an issue where it had not been before. I live near and use the intersection on a daily basis. I walk, drive, and come from all directions, and I have never felt unsafe. If I truly felt it were dangerous, I would understand. The only thing I learned at the meeting was from the president of the St. John's Neighborhood Association that the city would never, never, never do any maintenance at that intersection.
Ma'am, if you could just wrap up.
Oh, sure. I do not understand why the city would refuse to do their duty and just give away our land. I cannot support this proposal.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
My name is Chloe. I'm a resident of St. John's, and I support keeping Ivy Island. St. John's is a valuable neighborhood. It's one of the things that attracts people to our city. Its small town feel and historic neighborhood. Its natural places and natural spaces like Ivy Island with its mature trees. These are key elements to St. John's. From the moment a person enters the downtown St. John's, whether traveling over the historic St. John's Bridge or ushered in by the welcome sign and the foliage of Ivy Island, one feels that they are entering a community and a little piece of history. Ivy Island highlights the small town feel of St. John's Business District and provides easy access. Ivy Island is a signature gateway into St. John's. This new intersection that would go in place of Ivy Island would get rid of our valued green space, and it would obstruct the view of the St. John's Business District and of the bridge. This development would be a deterrent to the current feel of St. John's and has the interest of out-of-town developers in mind, more so than the people who made this neighborhood what it is. I am in favor of saving this historic green space for the good of the neighborhood and for its people. The developers might provide some people with new spaces to live for the time being, but this is our character and our history of place. It is our it is the character of this place that brought the people to it, and that will be what makes them stay.
Well done. Thank you very much. Carla, next three.
Are Donna Cohen, Joe Adamski, and Silver Boo, and they'll be followed by Richard Tennant, Susan Tennant, and Heather Tennant.
Why don't you kick us off?
Afternoon, Council. My name is Donna Cohen, and I'm a resident of St. John's, and I'm glad to see there are 4 residents here who served on the stakeholder committee for the St. John's Truck Strategy Phase 2 plan. During that process, we dealt with a lot of pedestrian safety issues, including that of a blind curve. And we need to call the slip lane what it is, which is a blind curve. I believe it's unsafe there. I am in that area regularly. I think the reconfiguration, the traffic reconfiguration is going to make the area much safer. In terms of the plaza, I like Alan Jones's terminology of activating that area. That's exactly what I look forward to. Right now, the area around the island, that whole corner, nothing is going on there. I mean, it's just, to me, kind of a dead zone. So when I look at, the design and I see the possibility of people being able to sit out there with coffee and just hang out there, I think that's going to do a lot for the community. I do agree and think it's absolutely crucial that it be in perpetuity publicly available. That is something that would concern me. So I would want to know that. And I'd like them to take care of the plaza and just keep it clean.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you, Council. My name is Joe Adamski, and I too am a St. John's resident and have been active in local and community organizations, groups, and efforts for quite some time. I have been as passionate supporting the vacation as some of other voices have been against the vacation. It comes from a point that we both care about this place greatly. I don't know that the pros and the con groups speak for the entire community. I think we are a small group, but we have a shared love of the place, though I sometimes think we're misdirected hanging on to a piece of something when we're forgetting those other elements of the community, such as schools, parks, safe sidewalks, the whole laundry list of the things that we enjoy living in St. John's. I'm testifying today to support the vacation of the traffic island. I believe that the benefits of the intersection redesign and the creation of a gateway far outstrip any concerns about a perceived giving away of land to a developer. This is not a free lunch for the developer. The city is gaining the benefit of a needed intersection design. The community is gaining that gateway and that improved pedestrian access to the business district. And the business district is getting another asset in that collective piece of the downtown St. John's area. So on that note, I think we're kind of cutting off our nose to spite our face with getting into battles. I think as a group, as the two different groups, we need to coalesce and find out the things we value, but let's not fight over this vacation. I think that's the wrong thing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Silver Boo, and I have lived in St. John's for 4 years. I moved here because of the small town atmosphere and the St. John's Bridge. I have been meeting with the people of St. John's at Ivy Island to discuss the situation involved with the vacation of Ivy Island. In order to better inform the people of St. John's, we have been passing out flyers regarding this matter. I have been on Richmond giving flyers to folks who roll down their windows to learn what we are doing there. Most of these travelers have no idea what is going on with this wonderful oasis from the hurly-burly noise of the surrounding paved roads and brick buildings. The ones who are somewhat informed are outraged that anyone would consider rearrangement of Lombard as it moves traffic easily into St. John's Business District and affords the pleasure of a gateway viewing 9 established trees and colorful heavenly bamboo among waving grasses and Oregon grapes. Not all of our citizens know what vacation of Ivy Island involves. Some have heard about it and think the apartments will be built across the street behind the fenced area. They do not get why the city of Portland should give up this space for underground parking. After speaking with many people, the most asked questions are, why do they plan this structure without available parking on site? Where do restaurants and other new businesses park? How do the major changes affect St. John's? Why upset the unique setting that this lovely island affords St. John's? It is our gateway. Not all the people renting at Marble 29 park in the underground parking of that building. They park on the surrounding streets and make a lot of people upset. What is wrong with this picture? My big question is, how will the TriMet buses be able to go around the corner on Richmond? Just from observing the width of the turning radius they now make, how can they make this turn on a two-way street? I understand that TriMet is making new buses 45 feet in length. Has that been included in this plan? It has been said that the slip lane is dangerous. I was nearly hit by a car on Lombard at Alta a few weeks ago. It is possible to put up speed bumps, flashing lights, and create crosswalks.
Ma'am, if you could just wrap up, please.
That costs a lot less than rerouting the entire entry to our sweet little river city.
By
Thank
the way,
you for listening.
we are making notes as we're hearing testimony, and the questions that you're posing, we'll have a chance to ask staff at the end. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Carla, would you please call the next 3?
Are Richard Tennant, Susan Tennant, and Heather Tennant, and they'll be followed by Gary Boehm, John Petty, and Kelly Tadlock.
Hi, my name is Richard Tennant, and I'm a member of the St. John's community, and this is my wife, my mother-in-law, my granddaughter, and my daughter. And what I wanted to tell you and inform you today is that I'm a member of the St. John's Heritage Society, and we were not informed of any of this. I didn't know any of the details of Ivy Island until John Tepley raised my attention by an article written in the St. John's Review. In the article, John explained that others might want to attend a meeting at the St. John's Neighborhood Association in order to voice our opinions. Susan, my wife, and I attended. During the course of the meeting, we both felt discouraged because the officials typified this project as being a done deal. I had just learned about the Ivy Island transfer, yet it was a done deal. I bring testimony to the City Council about the lack of relevant information that would ensure the proper input that might help us build a foundation. A foundation is a base or basis upon which something stands or is supported. If an architect wants to build wants a building to stand, an engineering study must be the first step. In a large project, a foundation is actually begun in the science of planning. The community is both the aggregate and can be the bond if the formula of strength, mass, and informational science is applied. A foundation is also a legal term. The lack of foundation is a valid objection that an adverse party may raise during a trial. I am here to tell you that a proper foundation was absent during the public input avenue towards this process. There was a proposal made and a bargain struck that seemed hidden and out of sequence. Someone offered a piece of property for sale in lieu of payment of signal lights. In any bargain, there is a movement between the seller and buyer, and a benefit of the bargain is struck between them. The buyer spends funds based upon the transfer of property which generated an engineering detail. I believe it was only as after this bargain was struck, the other ingredients of public notification input were talked about.
Thank you. I humbly present myself and wish all people here peace and love and good health. Thank you. I'm against the removal of the island, and I speak in behalf of the children also at James John School who will get the traffic coming out. They just put new green, a little greenness so they can have soccer and the trees, and so this has an impact. The trucks are not speeding through town at maximum speeds and above because they go a different direction. I also want to say that the conduct of this whole process, somebody mentioned 2 neighborhood associations, 2 neighbors, Main Street. The public had absolutely none. And this conduct is unbecoming to the City of Portland, Department of Transportation, Main Street, St. John's, and the Association and the Development Commission. Lack of transparency for over 14,000 people is bad. When a Bureau of Transportation can call a developer and make a deal of real property belonging to the city and the people of St. John's for developer service in exchange for property, and that developer acts on that as a conveyance to others and altering his plan. And then when that developer goes to the neighborhood association, puts in a call, I have a deadline. I need to know if you're for me or against me. They put in an electronic vote. And we don't know what day, what time, but it's illegal. And he gives that support. And that is not fair. And then when we come to the meeting in early fall and there's 80 people and the chair says, hey, it's a done deal. Okay. Now, the gateway at Marvel is one of the worst. We heard that earlier. You go to your Vision Zero Portland crash, and you will see this bomb, and you will look at the other area. Now, go down to Ivy, not Ivy, you go to Ida, McDonald's, the other gateway, and you'll see one tree with a fence around it. That's a gateway for them. Now, these contributors of Marvel Island to Main Street, Marvel Island, that to Main Street, and Fred Meyers and New Season, we're going to have the next bomb, and the traffic is going to be right at the corner of Union.
Ma'am, thank you very much.
Mark my words.
I missed your name. Could you give me again,
My
please?
name is Susan T. Tennant, W-T-E-N-N-A-N-T.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I welcome the youngest member of the audience who is here to testify.
Absolutely, and probably our eldest.
There you go. Welcome to
Yes.
both of you.
Thank you. My name is Heather Tennant, and this is my 91-year-old grandmother, and this is my 4-year-old daughter, and I'm here to speak against the removal of Ivy Island. Ourselves have had 5 generations of St. John's and North Portland family. 4 generations, including grandmother, that are living. And grandmother herself has lived in St. John's for a little over 65 years. I live with my grandmother 4 days a week, taking care of her in St. John's. Grandma was also a part of the Shirley Ann Fund for the local fire department. My grandmother also helped to save the St. John's Library. She gathered neighbors, including Boy Scouts, school children, to stop its removal by protesting. So we come from a protesting family. My grandfather used to whistle and tap dance in the St. John's Theater that is still in St. John's. But the reason why I'm here is to say that our Ivy Island, St. John's is such a small community. We have great people, we have history, we have roots. I would ask that you guys take a drive through St. John's and you'll see how quaint and how lovely our community is. We may be a small community, but we stick together. We were not notified of publicly in regards to the removal of Ivy Island. I, like so many other here that you will hear testimony still, and the ones that have given their testimony, we were not given any form of adequate awareness, and that's too bad. 4-story buildings don't meet what you see when you enter St. John's. Just because you have money and you claim that you're a good person doesn't mean that we should trust you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And what do you have to say? Save Ivy Island. You know, say save our...
Save Ivy Island.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's the best testimony today.
Absolutely.
And by the way, I'm pretty sure that during my 7 years, we have all, at least once a year, convened for one of our favorite events, which is the St. John's Parade.
Thank you.
We all
And she was
proudly
president
believe-
of St. John's
Yeah, I
Parade.
think everybody here, I don't think anyone's missed it, and I think I can speak for myself, it's one of the highlights of the year.
Thank you.
It's one of the best parades in Portland.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And if the street vacation is approved, I'm assuming that the parade would make the corner rather than cutting across the plaza, or have you thought about that?
We don't know. That's a good question. Thank you for asking.
Is Grandma speaking, or is she just here?
No, Grandma's here in support.
Thank you
She
very
is in
much.
support.
I didn't want to say too much.
You'd be considered young in my family. My grandfather lived to 102.
Wow, congratulations.
So well,
Long
thank you for
life.
taking the time, all 3 generations.
Thank you. Yeah.
Carla, can you call the next 3?
Yes, the next 3 are Gary Boehm, John Petty, and Kelly Tadlock, and they will be followed by Judy Briner, Dana McErleen, and Clinton Doxey.
Okay. Welcome.
Hi.
Would you like to kick it off?
Sure. I have this thing I'm going to read, and I'm going to try to make it in 2 minutes here.
Okay.
So might be a little speed reading. My name's Kelly Tadlock, and I've lived in St. John's for the last 15 years, I think. And dear Mayor and Commissioners, here are the issues in a nutshell. The strongest pro-Belluri development vacate Ivy Island position is the safety issue at Charleston. From this point of view, the only way to solve the safety issue is to remove the Lombard slip lane and square the corner with a traffic light. PBOT will not pay to do this. To have a developer to do this and trade in order to build on Ivy Island is a bonus. The city will privatize public property in this scenario. According to PBOT, there have been 7 accidents at this corner between 2004 and 2013. Pro-vacate Ivy Islanders say that the number of accidents is excessive and creates an urgency that only the Belluri development will remedy. The St. John's Lombard Plan is the authority for this traffic reconfiguration. The safety issue of the Richmond Lombard horizontal blind curve by the storage facilities is irrelevant. Save Ivy Island will argue that it's a safety issue at Charleston, not an issue of the slip lane. As a safety issue, we can break it down into components. 1, blind curve. 2, vehicle speed. 3, walkability, 4, pedestrian crossing. We can work on and make each component safer. When talking about safety, the conversation usually begins with the blind curve. Save Ivy Island would work with the developer to improve the sight line, make the blind curve a sighted curve by moving it back 6 feet. Lombard 7 and Levitt, which is very dangerous, in my opinion.
Ma'am, thank you very much. Thank you for testimony. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. My name is Gary Beam. I had served as the president of the St. John's Boosters from October 1996 through December of 2009. In that capacity, I did participate in the St. John's Lombard planning effort. That, and personally, I've been impacted by the gentrification of St. John's. I don't support this proposal for a lot of reasons. Some of it is due to the lack of affordable housing that the St. John's Lombard Plan calls for. This development does not indicate any affordable housing. Additionally, the claim of safety at the North Charleston and North Lombard intersection may be valid, but in my opinion, it's short-sighted. There is significant information out there through the intersection safety audit of North Richmond and North Jersey that indicate that the slip lane can be made safe through narrowing the entrance of it, appropriate signage, cleaning up the street clutter that exists, and additionally it points out to what's something that's called a horizontal blind curve coming westbound as you round the corner for the storage facility that's there. They do not recommend the northern crosswalk crossing from the island because that is a safety issue. Additionally, if you go to the PBOT website and look up the Vision Zero traffic injury fatality from 2004 to 2013, the Charleston Lombard intersection has very little pedestrian bicycle interaction. 1 or 2 bikes have interacted there and no pedestrians throughout.
That we have. This gateway we were talking about, Ivy Island, is one of 2 that were built in St. John's something like 25 to 30 years ago. One at the foot of the bridge, and then the other one here at Ivy Island, where we're talking about the slip lane. The Lombard plan very explicitly says there's a safety issue here that needs to be addressed, and it proposes a new interchange for that purpose. But it also is very explicit in saying that the right-of-way that's vacated by the slip lane should be used to provide for a great visual gateway into St. John's and not to be occupied by a building. The building that's proposed would occur over the right-of-way line by several feet. I would suggest that a way to approach this would be for the building to be restricted to being on the private property. That even though PBOT says there will never be any money to spend, public money to spend on this, that, there are always fundraising mechanisms. Although PBOT says that any mitigations to the slip lane, as suggested in professional literature, would just be Band-Aids, I would suggest that it's been several years now that this hazard has been recognized, and to date, there have been no mitigations to try and save someone who happened to be caught out in that slip lane. I would suggest that the building being back and slip lane remaining open, mitigated until the money is there, and then the new interchange can be built and the new gateway can be done on top of what the slip lane used to be.
Sir, thank you very much for your testimony. Carla, the next 3, please.
Are Judy Briner, Dana McErleen, and Clinton Doxey, and they'll be followed by Tom Karwacki, Joshua Leslie, and Tom Stubblefield.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi.
Ma'am, would you kick us off?
Sure, thank you for having us here today. I really appreciate it. I am a relatively newcomer to St. John's, which means I've only lived there for 15 years. That means I'm new, pretty new still. I moved there from Northwest Portland. I lived on Northwest 21st for 6 years. And I thought there needed to be many changes in St. John's when I moved there. I never, ever thought, let's start tearing things down. I never said, let's tear a building down, let's tear this down, let's just completely change the neighborhood. I never thought about that. I just hoped that restaurants and different people would take over buildings that were already there. We have lots of empty spaces in St. John's now that have never been filled. So I feel that if Ivy Island was taken away and the building built there, we would lose a lot of the character of St. John's, lots of it. And I just saw pictures today of what it would look like. We all saw those. And I want to say that not only could that building be anywhere in Portland, it could be anywhere in the world. That building has nothing to do with St. John's at all. It could be anywhere. It's generic, completely generic. It looks very pretty, but it has nothing to do with St. John's. I also want to point out that because a lot of time has been spent on getting this building approved, that doesn't make it right. Just because the amount of time is spent on it does not make it the right thing to do. And I just want to say that as a voter, I am really hoping that we look for new and inventive ways to cure or to get ready for all the people that are moving here. Obviously, we're going to have very high density. We all know that. We're not arguing with that. But we need to save the character of our neighborhoods while we're doing this. We just need to be more creative about it.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Dana McGurlin. My address is 7525 North Richmond Avenue. I have lived and worked in St. John's and North Portland for 20 years, opening 8 businesses during that time, including the Colony, which is adjacent to the proposed Union development. I am heavily interested in the neighborhood and committed to see its residents and businesses thrive. I'm here to request that the City Council only approve a vacation of the entire portion of North Lombard Street right-of-way as was originally proposed and notice to the public, and not the partial vacation proposed before you this afternoon. Fairly considering the community, the city, my and the petitioner's interest, I am opposed to the partial vacation as presented. At the time of my previous public testimony, I stated I was in favor of the entire vacation conditioned by discussion with the petitioner regarding cooperation between us as adjoining property owners. These good faith discussions were terminated by the petitioner when he became aware that the city initiated and requested partial vacation would circumvent the need for any further cooperation between us, and that he would be able to obtain the property through an encroachment easement. Although the cost of the vacation and the proposed improvements presented in this hearing are very attractive, they do not reflect the visual magnitude and monetary value solely benefiting the petitioner. The gateway to St. John's will be the gateway to the Union development. Under no uncertain terms, the Union will encroach with structure and presence into what is legally currently a public property. This monetary mechanism should not marginalize procedures or interested parties' rights. This is a valuable community asset is being traded for short-term improvement costs. Traffic safety as a result of the right-of-way vacation and sidewalk and road realignment should be examined more cautiously, and it is in more detail.
Thank you very much.
Semi-trucks turning ability are tight, I'm almost done, at the dense urban and pedestrian intersection, and crossing and may be dangerously inadequate. Thank you for hearing my testimony.
Thanks very
I
much.
just have a question. You own the colony, which is
do.
right here, right?
Yes.
Which is this one, Collie, the white space. So this proposal would be quite different if that Plaza 2 were vacated also, and then you would get some of that property at
That
least.
is correct. And I have done title search work that states that it would be very clear that it would revert back to my property from historic records, which they had stated early that they were unable to find proof of that.
And potentially a future, if that is the case, and I don't know whether it is or not, but you or a future property owner could petition to vacate that plaza too.
I could.
And then you could develop it or whatever.
I could.
So I think that that's an important point, colleagues, because this site plan is premised on Plaza 2 contributing a fairly large amount of open space that eases the magnitude of the development on the proposed site plan.
On that site as well lives my signage, my frontage to Lombard, which will be taken down and not, put back up. It's a sign that's been there for 30 years.
We'll have staff
So
come back.
I was wondering about that because that's really the sight line to your property.
It is.
And the access ways.
And I think that the proposed design really just creates a buffer zone between me and the plaza. It really isn't incorporating my property or any idea of future development that may happen at some point, which would be my intention, at some point in time.
And your signage is currently in the area that's designated as
Yes,
Plaza 2?
it comes about 10 to 15 feet, or it's within 10 feet. And the petitioner and I had been in communications and negotiations, and he terminated them. I had responded, and he did not respond. I had got in touch with him numerous times with very reasonable, counter negotiations, but.
We can't get into that.
Okay,
in a
sorry
public
about
forum.
that.
I appreciate knowing some more of the background because obviously in a street vacation process, the adjacent property owners have a particular interest, and so I really appreciate you
Yes,
taking the time
I
to
would
be
like
here.
to continue the dialogue if possible.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, sir.
Hello, President Fish, Commissioners. Thank you for the time. My name is Clinton Doxey. I live at 8540 North Charleston Avenue, 2 blocks away from the intersection at Lombard where the proposed intersection or the proposal will affect that particular intersection. I think I'd like to try and keep it short. A lot of good points were made today. I'd like to just kind of focus on 2. The first point is safety. This is an issue that just can't be hammered quite enough. I cross it multiple times a day to get to the grocery store, by foot, by bike, by car. I cross it to get to the bus. I cross it with my son and my family, and I've had multiple near misses, one this week, quite frequently. And so for people to say that, they don't feel like it's unsafe because they haven't experienced seems a little narrow-visioned in my opinion. So I just wanted to reiterate that the safety issue has been identified, and I'm here to kind of put a face to that. The second point I'd like to make is regarding the gateway issue, which is a very, very pertinent point to make about this proposal. And I'd just like to say that gateways aren't just about signs. Gateways are about community. And the people, as you can see here, all testifying today, are very passionate about it. People are what make the community, and the community is what makes St. John's, and our gateway what a gateway is. Thank you.
Thank you all. Carla, can we call the next 3?
That would be Tom Karwacki, Joshua Leslie, and Tom Stubblefield. And they will be followed by Stan Hoff, Deshay Uisna. He already spoke, I believe. Okay, thank you.
So we have about 9 people left, so just for time check, we'll give everyone a chance to speak, then we'll bring staff back up, and we have some questions based on the testimony, then we'll have council deliberation to see where we want to go for those of you who are just, so I'm guessing plus or minus 4 o'clock, we'll start deliberations. Welcome, if you'd like to begin, sir.
Hi, my name is Joshua Leslie. I'm the current land use chair for the St. John's Neighborhood Association. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to present. I want to express my support for the proposed street vacation, which will eliminate the slip lane and redesign the intersection to bring it in line with the recommendations from the St. John's Lombard Plan. There's been a lot of conversations in the neighborhood about this project. The developers have attended 4 public meetings to answer questions, and they've been really open and responsive to the community. and to the community groups that have reached out with them. I've talked to a lot of people in the community about this issue. There's definitely vocal opposition from quite a few of our neighbors, but based on conversations I've had, I think there's at least as much support for redesigning the intersection. Most of the people I've talked to want the intersection to be safer. They disagree on the best way to move forward with that, but a lot of them do agree with the recommendations from the St. John's Lombard Plan, which was developed through a community-based process. Personally, I think the intersection at Lombard and Charleston is my least favorite in the neighborhood. Traffic doesn't stop as it goes from the highway, and I feel unsafe every time I cross it. I can't wait until that section becomes safer by reconfiguring the intersection and adding a traffic signal. This has been on PBOT's to-do list for years, but with the long backlog of street projects, I know it might take several more years until funding is available to make the changes. I think this is a great opportunity for the neighborhood to get publicly requested improvement made. Partnering with a developer to fund a transportation project like this is a good precedent, and I think that it should happen again moving forward. Beyond the safety of the intersection, the developer has taken measures such as the stage setbacks of the building with the different colored bricks to match the building with the community design overlay. They're incorporating plazas and have agreed to relocate the Welcome to St. John's marquee onto the property. The tree mitigation plan, which the developer has offered, adds extra trees. I believe that the combination of the relocated sign, the trees, the plaza, and the proposed aesthetics of the building will make an attractive gateway to the downtown corridor. I hope you support this vacation.
Thank you very much. And just by way of clarification, when we're finished with testimony, we'll have a discussion, take up the amendment. This is an ordinance. It is not an emergency, so it will be going to a second reading next week or whenever the sponsor so indicates. So, sir. Okay.
Tom Karwacki, 7139 North McCrum. The University Park Neighborhood Association Land Use and Transportation Committee supports the vacation of this for safety reasons and because it's consistent with the Lombard Plan. We note that the new plaza would be about the size of two of the Cadillacs that you usually drive in the parade in, Mr. Saltzman, plus a smart car and possibly even a Prius. So it's fairly sizable, and it might be providing a public benefit. It's about the same size as some of the standard insurance set back there, so you can see what you can sort of get in 40 feet. So that's why we're in favor for safety and because it's consistent with the Lombard Plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Welcome.
My name's Tom Stubblefield.
One second. I think you do have the authority to put conditions on the use and through a covenant to so that you don't get stuck with this issue of putting the street vacation and then suddenly it becoming redesigned. So I think that's something you're going to want to look at.
And sir, that is the indication
that's
we've
the
gotten
issue.
from the city attorney. So we're trying to get draft language as we speak. Welcome.
Hey, my name is Tom Stubblefield, and I live on Willamette Boulevard. My family home was on North Richmond Street, and I just sold the home we had for 60 years, and it's just a few hundred feet from there. I also own the St. John's Thriftway store, was where Safeway is now. As far as the city giving up land to private, we vacated 6 streets in that area, thanks to the city of Portland. At the time, we were on a growth spurt, and it was redeveloped. I owned the store after that, and now it's Safeway. I've got a pretty good history on that square, or on the Ivy Island. When I was 8 years old, I stood there with a safety patrol flag right in front of the old furniture store, and the traffic came around. It was dangerous then, and it's dangerous now. And
So you went to the school around
I went to school there back, I won't say when, but it's right after cars came out. It was terrible, you know.
sometime in the 80s.
Yeah, right. So anyway, we have done, I'm on the board of the Main Street program, and we have done a lot of work on that island, and drove across Washington County getting all the plants, brought them in. UAP came in. We worked really hard. I spent the summer watering, which I got in trouble with the city, but anyway, the plants lived and the city forgot about it. So that's a good thing. The second thing is, it was Ivy Island. It had rats in there, and it took us forever. We got it cleaned up. It's gone. It looks great, but In 1978, it was a great idea. In 2016, it's not. We need to eliminate it. We're getting private money to help us. Let's go for it. It's going to save the city a lot of money. So anyway, it doesn't matter how long you've been there, if you came yesterday or in the 40s or 50s, it's still a problem, and it's a safety factor. In my second career, we restored that Signal gas station there, and we were working on it, and I saw probably the worst head-on collision I've ever seen on that blind corner. Nobody got killed. It was amazing. Yesterday, I was coming out of Main Street office, and a lady was coming across the street with her child, and it's a near miss. It was stupid. So anyway, all in favor of vacating the island, clean it up. Thank
Thank you for joining us. Carla, next street.
Are Stan Hoff, Shay Uizna, and Rockman Beach. And they'll be followed by Joseph Perky, John Tepley, and Eugene Darko.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Shay Wishna. If the vacation is approved by Mr. Bellori and Mr. Bellori is given our public lands, then the Union at St. John's will spill over onto Ivy Island and the slip lane. A 4-story building on what is now a gateway is like building a wall where now there is a wide open entryway. There will no longer be visibility through the trees of Ivy Island into the downtown corridor. There will no longer be a gateway into St. John's. It'll just be a corner like any other corner in Portland. Right now, our gateway works. Cars and buses are brought into our downtown via the slip lane. Vehicles are siphoned off from the traffic headed to the bridge. Based on data provided by the PBOT 2011 safety audit, we know that 42% of all cars approaching St. John's from the east utilize the Lombard Slip. So the slip lane actually plays a major part in reducing traffic congestion. The safety audit suggests that without the slip lane, traffic will self-divert into residential areas to avoid the congestion on Lombard. Oh, and this is interesting. Turns out there's a second blind curve we'll need to deal with. A horizontal blind curve is what they call it, at that intersection that we're planning on changing at Jersey and Richmond. This blind curve won't be fixed by raising Ivy Island because the problem is actually the shape of the block across the street from it where the storage units sit. This explains why PBOT does not recommend putting a crosswalk at that north end of that intersection. It's too dangerous for pedestrians to cross there. Look, development is coming. We get it. In a sea of new construction of 3- and 4-story buildings, this is all the more reason to hold on to our commons, our public open green space. Cars can be slowed down as they enter the slip lane. The safety audit had many low-cost solutions that were never implemented, such as improved signage, better painted direction on the asphalt, narrowing the slip lane to calm traffic. And how about we change the speed limit to 20 miles per hour throughout the downtown? By hanging all of our safety issues onto the Lombard Slip and the blind corner at Charleston, we run the risk of throwing away so much that's really wonderful about our gateway. And if we think that all our traffic woes will go away by eliminating the slip and squaring the block, I think we're in for a rude awakening. Thank you.
Ma'am, I want to just comment, you said reduce the speed to 20. I've got streets in my neighborhood in Northeast that are marked 25. And I feel like I'm a hazard because going 25, the cars are passing me at such high frequencies. And I wish there was a better appreciation, a broader appreciation of what we mean by Vision Zero. So I applaud that comment. Sir?
Thank you very much. My name is Stan Hoff, and I have been in and out of St. John since 1978. Currently, I live in Southeast Portland, and I can't tell you how many times that I and my friends go over to St. John's. We just love to go there because this same accolade I've heard for 20 years. St. John's has a small town feel. And I just believe that anything that contributes to its irregularities, it's so historical. There's so much that's going on. And I think with this Ivy Triangle, it would be very important just to really make sure that we totally understand the history of that little area, because it does serve the purpose of giving that small town feel, which I really like, and it helps make St. John's a destination. And once it's gone, it's gone. And there must be some way to try to, if it does go, have things that contribute to that small-town feel, because St. John's is currently, and it's a destination. It's not a grid, and because it isn't a grid is one reason it has that small-town feel. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Rockland Beach, my family's been in St. John's since the 40s, and I run a business in downtown St. John's. I'm opposed to the removal of Ivy Island. I'm not going to, a lot of people have already expressed my concerns. The safety issue, that's a separate issue. People try to connect that issue with simply the part about saving Ivy Island. The traffic pattern, as I say, that's a separate issue, and I think it can be addressed. As I say, I've lived in St. John's most of my life, and I run a business dead center of St. John's. So anyway, that's my opinion, is some of these other safety issues can be addressed, but that's a different topic from simply preserving that island. That's all.
Sir, thank you very much. Carla, next three.
Are Joseph Perkey, John Tepley, and Eugene Darko. And the last person who signed up will be Philip Fenster.
And as these three gentlemen are getting seated, if there's someone in the audience that came hoping to testify, you didn't hear your name, would you please let Carla know, and we'll give you a chance to testify. Welcome, and sir, would you kick us off?
Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me to testify. What I have here is over 1,000 signatures of St. John's whose voices have never been heard and considered in the development at the Union St. John's. Throughout the entire process, there was never enough engagement to ensure the community of St. John's would be properly informed about the details and impact of the proposed plan. I have 5 reasons why I think you should vote no on vacation. Public property should remain public and not be privatized. 2, the Ivy Island parcel and the Eastern Colony parcel both have large mature trees. The mitigation arrived at for these trees does not reflect their true value. 3, we are told that this is based on the St. John's Lombard plan, that our community asked for this, but the site plan for the 2 developments are decidedly different. 4, inexpensive safety improvements that involve signage and paint and recommended by the 2011 safety audit were not implemented. Then our community is told that PBOT can't afford to improve the intersection and we must go with the Blory plan if we want improved safety for our community. The 5th reason is that PBOT did not do a good enough job at engaging the community concerning this project. The outreach seemed to have been fully in the hands of the St. John's Main Street and the St. John's Neighborhood Association without PBOT guidance. The ensuing 4 meetings that they facilitated were essentially meetings in which the developer and the architect promoted their project. I attended 2 of them. There was no opportunity for an open discussion concerning the project and its meaning for the St. John's community by the St. John's community. A project of this importance that radically changes the face of St. John's, it needed proper public involvement. I think the process needed stronger PBOT and Planning Department presence in developing the discussion. Concerning what this corridor was to look like, it specifically says in the St. John's Lombard plan on page 86 that specific design details still need to be developed through a design engineering process with public involvement. And to Ms. Jensen, who said that I came in on this on the 11th hour, this has been since June, so I don't think that we can consider this an 11th hour, and it has been a struggle, with doing this through the community. Thank you, Commissioner.
Give us your name again, please.
John Tepley.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Joseph Perkey. I've lived in St. John's for the past 13 years. I'm a business owner of an architecture firm in the center of St. John's, and a parent with students at James John School nearby this proposed development. I've been deeply involved in the community ever since I've lived here, including leading the volunteer and donation based project with DPAVE and AC Portland at the school to put in the soccer field and remove 8,000 square feet of asphalt there. The first time I heard about the proposed traffic change in the St. John's Lombard plan, I was interested in that. It looked like a good solution to that dangerous corner. And then in 2011, a student at my kid's school at James John got struck by a car on his way to school. That increased my interest in that project. And I joined the principal when ODOT came out to start their study of that intersection, which resulted in agreeing with the St. John's Lombard Plan intersection change, which is included in this vacation project. I think that this is a great opportunity to further the Vision Zero goals with zero public dollars. And I think that the important sightlines that are spoken about in the St. John's Lombard Plan are preserved with the cars coming to a right angle and seeing all the way a full block before they get to the next intersection. I would like to encourage you to consider any additional considerations, caveats, but keep a priority on the safety of our community at that intersection.
Thank you very much, sir. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me here. My name is Eugene Darko. I help run a business that's local to St. John's. I am a father, and my son attends James John Elementary as well. I believe I've seen all of you at the parade. You know about the small town character. The proposed development destroys our gateway. That's an aspect of our character. I'm asking you to save the gateway because there are solutions to this problem. A 2011 safety audit shows the slip lane works. 62 autos traveled south and 44 traveled into the business district. We've just got to slow them down. Monday night at the neighborhood association meeting, a member of the safety and livability team mentioned a 20-mile-per-hour limit like North Williams has. Or how about a four-way stop at Charleston and Lombard? It'll be good for TriMet bus number 4 that always has to make that turn. It'll be good for the students, my son. It'll be good for walkability, and it'll be a good way to reduce speed in downtown in general. There's a lot of talk about safety. Okay, so I want to talk about the 2011 safety audit, which explains that a blind horizontal curve makes a northern crossing at the Lombard-Richmond-Jersey intersection unsafe. That's page 43. To quote, some longer-term plans have identified the possibility of reopening the northern crossing, and indeed, full movement intersections should be standard practice, as was done for the stopping sight distance evaluation of the southern crossing. A similar analysis was done for a reopened northern crossing. Conducting the same analysis but applying this to the northern crossing indicates that the more limited sight distances argues against reopening that. That's the intersection we're talking about. Making it a four-way intersection, not a squared off one, but a parallelogram, even different than a square here. So let's not destroy 9 30-foot plus tall trees. Let's not vacate the public land. We don't have to do that. I'm asking for your vote to save the gateway to St. John's and to keep our small town character. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Carla, who else?
The last person who signed up is Philip Fenster.
Philip, as you're coming forward, is anyone else in the audience like to be recognized? Well, sir, you have the last word.
Right on. Thank you for having me. My name is Philip Fenster, and I am a 15-year resident of St. John's. I support vacating the slipway in Ivy Island. Traveling the length of North Charleston, the intersection of North Lombard is a part of my daily bicycle commute. I find this intersection to be unnecessarily dangerous due to the inability to see traffic coming from the east and the slipway inviting motorists to glide right on through. I fear that implementing crosswalks or flashing lights would do little to slow motorists, and that the absence of pedestrian and that in the absence of pedestrians, it would be business as usual, exceeding the speed limit. At the very least, the slipway should have speed bumps. At the very least, the slipway should have at least 2 speed bumps to effectively slow traffic. Over the years, I have seen great improvements to Ivy Island. I was a member of the team that removed that invasive ivy. I very much appreciate the value of plants as carbon sinks. The plantings on Ivy Island have great value as carbon sinks, and I do not take the idea of their removal lightly. I am confident that replanting as required by code would be met, but I would hope that the developer would voluntarily go beyond code in their replacement of plants in order to make the extra effort to combat climate change. I feel that the proposed public plazas create usable and inviting spaces for the community of St. John's. I do not see the vacation of the slipway as creating unacceptable traffic congestion, and if it were to increase congestion, I would encourage motorists to transition to bicycles. Regarding the proposed amendment, I support the vacation. Regarding the proposed amendment, my support of the vacation is conditional on the guarantee of the proposed plazas being included.
Sir, thank you very much. Well, that concludes the public testimony. Steve, you want to have staff come back up?
Yes, please.
We could have PBOT staff
Maybe the applicant
come
or
up and
the
perhaps,
representative of the applicant.
And maybe a representative of the applicant.
Christy, would you like to come forward, or just start with you? And Commissioner Fritz, would you like to go first?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you, everybody, for coming today. It's very impressive how many of you were able to take time away on a Wednesday afternoon to come downtown, showing that actually it's really not that far to St. John's, and people can do it either direction. It's very accessible. And I really appreciate the passionate testimony on all sides. It's a part of a rich tradition of the St. John's neighborhood to have people disagreeing with each other. I first went there 25 years ago, and it's no different. So, and that's great. It's different folks and it's different issues, but it's always people who care a lot about your community and who are reasonable people who disagree. And so we'll now have a discussion about, is there a way forward that could find solutions that satisfy even more of the needs. Thanks to Kurt Kruger and the staff and also the applicant for looking to see, are there creative solutions that can address the St. John's Lombard plan, safety issues, still make a viable development and satisfy many values? Because I think we all share the goal of a great gateway to St. John's that is clearly a public gateway and not a private development blocking the way into St. John's. So with all that framing my discussion, the amendment that I raised before testimony started was to make sure that in particular Plaza 1 would always remain in open space. And so I understand with these various proposals, and perhaps we could come back with something before the second reading, my latest suggestion is that perhaps we could put a public access easement on a certain distance from the curb, which there isn't currently a public access easement that I can see, and that certainly needs to be part of a condition anyway. So I'm wondering whether that might be a solution that you could work on before we come back for a second reading, or if you have a different proposed solution to my concern.
Christy?
Sure. I think there are a lot of mechanisms we can use. That's one of them. The one we spoke about is that the property was subject to a design review that will be recorded against the property and requires the development not only of Plaza 1, but also of extended Plaza 2, subject to public use with no restrictions. And if there was any changes to that, which we don't anticipate at all, we'd have to go back through design review so we can carry which we don't anticipate, but we can carry that condition forward and articulate in this street vacation that should there be any changes, which again, we don't think there will be, that there would be a public review process to ensure that those changes comport with this discussion and the desire for the plazas. An easement is another way. There's a lot of different mechanisms. I think what it's important for me to communicate is that my client is all in, and we recognize that the beauty of this project is that those plazas are public and stay public.
I appreciate that. Just occasionally, we have had developers whose plans change. They sell the property. This is our one chance to have influence over the public right-of-way. I'm disappointed that it wasn't a type 3 design review because I'm concerned about some of the elements of the design, particularly showing the proposed site plan, the encroachment of the building into the vacated area. It really doesn't seem to comport with the St. John's Lombard plan that this corner was envisioned to be more open in the plan. So what is
Yeah.
It says future restaurant here. What is this lower portion designed to be?
So there's ground floor retail, and the idea is that it's flexible so that it can be broken up into smaller components based on the idea to have more local and small scale retail. And the piece that I would respond to is that the St. John's plan is one thing, and then the design guidelines and development standards for that particular roadway is another thing. And so in order to comply with the building line standards, a certain percentage of that building had to be within a particular distance. And what we asked for to expand the plaza area was actually for a modification, a departure from what was otherwise required under the code, so that we could back that building off as much as possible. And there was a really robust discussion about that during the design review process. And then the building is articulated with varied setbacks in order to soften the edge as much as possible. The other thing in the St. John's plan is that the plazas are a bow tie, and the concept plan was based on the buildings that were there at the time the plan was adopted. So they're shown in the building footprints that were there at that time, and of course, it doesn't necessarily anticipate that that particular building in that configuration would be there in the future.
Thank you for that. You're actually raising a chicken and egg problem in that the design review has been approved, assuming that the street vacation would happen. If we say no to the street vacation, then it has to go back to our previous plan, which would seem to be a shame. But we can't now modify the design, at least that's my understanding. I need some information from the city attorney. Can the council at this point ask for a rounded corner on that building or something else? And that's something maybe you can get back to us before the second reading.
Sure.
or continuance of this hearing. My other concern is raised by the owner of the colony, and you mentioned that the design review is conditioned on the plaza being improved according to the plan. It really seems like that plaza is a gateway to this development and not like a accessory to the colony. And I need to state ex parte contact. I was at the gathering about 6 months ago, which was held in the colony along with Fire Bureau staff, police staff. I don't remember if the transportation staff were all participating in this ex parte contact, but it's not an ex parte decision. It's, we're not
No
supposed
objection.
to talk. Thank you very much. It's a street vacation, so in some instances where we're acting as judges, we're not supposed to have contact with the parties. This is a little different, but it is site-specific. I just wanted to get that out there because I'm very sensitive to the concern that was raised by the owner of what about her sign? What about the orientation of the St. John's sign? What about taking this Plaza 2, which is not being vacated, and essentially giving it to the developer, both with the responsibility to improve it, but also with the impression that it's part of the landscaping for that property rather than public right-of-way? Could you address that concern?
I can, and then Kurt, you might be able to help me out with a little more history on the sign. So 2 things. On this, the only reason the street vacation actually went from whole to partial is because all of the research, including our own independent research with the title companies, the county's research, the city's research, and PBOT's research, indicated that there was no clear title post-vacation, which would have created an immense hurdle for actually building out the plaza in consistently with the St. John's plan. So what actually happened is that plaza stays in public property. And what we're doing is building the plaza on public property and dedicating it, of course, to public use because it's still public property. So it's actually kind of the best of both worlds. It's not a vacated right-of-way, it stays in public use, and the developer is actually funding the maintenance and capital improvements for the plaza. What didn't have to happen under the St. John's plan or under design review was for us to extend that plaza and open up more private property in that gateway configuration and then dedicate that to public use. It should be noted, and I know it's hard to read on a site plan, that is a seamless space. There is no demarcation.
There's no
That's my
fence.
concern.
Yeah,
And
there's
so
no
actually
gate,
then-
there's nothing. It's
Is that-
all public.
Since that Plaza 2 is still public space,
Yes.
shouldn't the other adjacent property owner have input into what it looks like, how it gets developed, where her sign is, where the St. John's sign is?
So in the normal course, when you're in design review, everybody has notice of the design review that's within a particular distance of that property. And the plaza was developed in design review under that notice. If a neighboring property owner doesn't particularly like the design of something, they comment in design review, and then it's the city's authority, actually, not ours. It's the city's authority to determine whether the design is compliant with the design guidelines and interfaces well with all the surrounding buildings.
If this is public property, it's not part of the site. So maybe, Kurt, you could address this. that-
It was in design review, they
But I don't see why
reviewed it.
design review has jurisdiction over it since it's PBOTS.
Again, for the record, Kruger Road Transportation. So we have an agreement, actually, it's in code with BDS, Bureau of Development Services, that when we do a non-standard improvement in the public right-of-way, which this would be, it requires design review.
Wouldn't then the adjacent property owner who's not this applicant be required to be a co-applicant?
No.
No, PBOT's in control of issuing that permit within the right-of-way. And that's why we take it through the design review process to get public input on that non-standard improvement. If this was a typical street, curbs, sidewalks, street trees, we wouldn't ask anybody for any design because that's a standard that we're implementing. But because we're varying from that standard, the code requirement is to take that through design review to open up that public comment period.
So what's the provision for the colony sign and where will that be?
So the sign, to my knowledge, to our knowledge, was permitted years ago through a short-term allowance, a permit that was set to expire, and I believe it expired 5 years ago. That sign is probably, for lack of a technical term, an illegal sign in the right-of-way that we would not permit today. It's a private sign in the public right-of-way, and we typically don't allow those.
How is it clear that the plaza is in fact public space and not part of the Courtyard Plaza? It doesn't seem like it is because there's a seamless, so it seems like there's an appropriation of public space that looks like it's associated with the private development, and that especially if the colony sign has to come down, they seem out of luck.
Well, can I just jump in on this for a sec? Because I'm feeling like I'm going to be eligible for college credit soon, listening to this discussion. Don't we have the same situation throughout the city, like the River District, where areas have been, there's public space integrated into a design and it's seamless, but it's clearly public space?
Yes, we have that situation. And actually, what's happening here is this is not a private appropriation of public space. The opposite is more true, that this is the expansion of public space onto private property as to Plaza 2 and an expansion of that. I completely understand the concern that, like, let's be sure it's very clear that it's all public. It's designed to accomplish that, which is what they do in the River District and in other areas of the city where you have an extension of a plaza space maybe onto private property. The design staff is very cognizant of that and tries to ensure that all of our design elements are seamless so people experience the space that way.
So how was the design modified by input from the colony and by the neighborhood of the Plaza 2?
We would probably have to bring up BDS staff to answer that question. They are in the audience.
I'd be interested. I mean, I know you always do great public outreach, and when I was there 6 months ago, there was discussion about this in general, and there was a lot of, well, we don't know yet. And now here we are, and it seems like there is still an opening for looking at how can the interests of the other property owner be safeguarded, because she could come forward with a street vacation request tomorrow.
Except that that no one who has done the legal search on this has been, I mean, with all due respect, there's one property owner who's raised this issue, and we have 4 jurisdictions that have said legally there is no clear answer to that. So we can't resolve that through this proceeding, and she's no better off or worse off.
That's right.
Well, she is, because her sign will come down.
But her sign's illegal to begin with.
Anyway, I think this is, let's come back to, let's stick with this panel first. I just want to make sure we get all the questions, and then we'll come back to that. Can I jump in for 1 sec? Because I heard some questions. If I missed the question stated, please blame me, not the author of the question. I was trying to keep track of comments from the public. But one person raised a question about TriMet buses. and the turning ratio or something. Could you address that?
Sure. Commissioner Fish, I apologize. I was spending more time out of council chambers than in, but I think I did catch that question.
You were doing that at council direction to try to
Thank you.
negotiate, so we appreciate that.
We have consulted TriMet. They have been part of the design. We will make sure that the TriMet bus can make the corner at the new intersection. But what probably wasn't made clear is there will be a new westerly lane that's developed where Ivy Island is, that will be the new gateway, the new entrance, the new roadway travel lane into St. John's. So that corner is actually going to grow and have more room, just like a downtown street corner. TriMet will be able to make that turn.
I've seen a lot of slides, and it's late in the day, and we've had a full day of council, so I'm just going to ask you a question that I should know, but I don't remember from the earlier slides. Someone testified that most of Ivy Island will be built on, and that sounded like the building portion would be on. What percentage of Ivy Island is actually occupied by a structure? Do we know?
No,
The landscape plan.
A corner.
Okay.
Most of Ivy Island will be in the road improvement and the plaza, the public plaza.
Right, so my understanding was very little of the building is.
Very little. And Ivy Island, the vacation is 5,000 square feet. The area dedicated back to the public through whatever mechanism we ensure that that occurs is near 9,000.
And just so I understand this, there's less building on that footprint because the applicant sought an adjustment so that the building is actually moved back beyond what the code would otherwise require. Is that correct?
That's true, and the building complies completely with all the density requirements in the code.
I also wanted to make sure I understand what's before us here and what is separate, because a lot of important issues have been raised. Some seem germane to this proceeding, some seem maybe are addressed in another forum. Are there any issues that, Kurt, that have been raised about the design of the building that have any connection to the issue before us today?
Thank you. I think the design of the building before a vacation or after a vacation are the key issues. If the vacation didn't occur and the applicant, we didn't go through this. We left everything as it is today. The sight lines will actually get worse because the applicant could build all the way out to the property line as the code would ask today.
And would the applicant be able to build the same scale of a building, the same, because we had some concerns raised by folks about the number of floors and some of the massing. So that would still be as of right?
That's correct.
Could I just ask clarification? I know you're in the middle of questioning, but I don't see why this, and I'm in favor of changing the street. Let me be really clear about that, but I don't see why the sight lines would be worse because there's this encroachment into the slip lane.
So the problem today is that it'd be easier if we were all standing at the corner and looking at this.
All right. Okay, so we have a bus waiting. We have 5 buses out front, enough for everyone in the audience. We're heading out there. We're having dinner on you, Kurt.
Thank you. I retract that suggestion.
Yeah.
The building that the code requires would set that building up at the property line today. So if we didn't vacate it and the right-of-way there stayed the same, we would actually have a building that would move closer to the right-of-way than there is today. So that sight distance would actually get worse if we left it alone.
No, because it would be on the slip road.
The curvature of the road right now doesn't have a building that's right up to the edge of the back of the sidewalk. That's
I
there
see what you
today.
mean.
Yeah.
Commissioner Saltzman, I want to make sure we're giving everyone equal time here.
No questions.
Commissioners, if I may, I wanted to highlight what Commissioner Fritz really painted as a chicken and egg issue. We struggle with this when we see this situation arise from time to time. It happens probably once a year where we think we see a street vacation that we would support for a traffic improvement, but trying to bring a developer along, knowing that there's an arduous process and a long road ahead, most developers choose not to jeopardize a project not knowing what that outcome may be 10, 11, 12 months down the road. So what we in PBOT tried to do with the applicant was try to do this due diligence and reach out to St. John's residents, St. John's business, St. John's Main Street, to get ahead of this so the applicant knew what they were getting into. And we did that with the recognized neighborhood association that the city identifies with.
And is it possible for the council to have different conditions now that would modify the design reviews committee? Because if they had come to us, we could have said, no, you don't have to put the building right up to the right of way. We could have said, we're going to vacate it and we don't want it all the way to the right of way.
I'm not going to suggest council that has a limitation on what you can do. I think you have the ability to make modifications.
Can I just just do a time check and a process check. Currently, this is a first reading of an ordinance, so this would go to a second reading. I want to just ask a few questions. Commissioner Novick, is it your intention to seek a time certain for next week for this matter?
I would like to do that, and what I would hope is, apparently the city attorney has said that if we instruct staff to come up with an amendment that will ensure that the amount of plaza space is not diminished and that there will be public access to that plaza space, then we could add that amendment after it's drafted next week without having additional testimony.
Well, we've also had plenty of testimony from folks explaining that they would like to see such a mechanism. The legal terms of how we structure that, we will, because one of the things I want to just propose as a next step, I don't want to foreclose this discussion, we'll go as long as the council wants, is that we ask Carla to see if we have a time certain next week that we could move this to. We make clear that the applicant, working with PBOT and Commissioner Fritz, who is the sponsor of the amendment, work over the next week to see if they can come to an agreement on an amendment that would be brought to council. And that we then see next week whether we're ready to take a vote on the matter before us. Is that conceptually acceptable to my colleagues?
Yeah, that, the public easement over all the plaza area is really important,
Well,
and yes, we can figure out how to do
And I'm
that.
comfortable saying that since Commissioner Fritz, you're the sponsor of the amendment, that it would be you, Commissioner Novick, the applicant, PBOT staff would work together to come up with an amendment. If you're not satisfied, that will have consequences next week.
Yeah.
Carla, can I ask you, we have public here, and I want to make sure we pick a time that's convenient. What time certain would we have available next week?
I have 10:45 in the morning, or really the afternoons are really booked, both Wednesday and Thursday.
What do we have? What's the biggest thing?
Wednesday is the 2:30 deconstruction. They've asked for 2 hours. And Thursday is the 3rd and Harrison.
What about 2 o'clock on Wednesday?
That's taken by the age-friendly presentation.
What's the 10:45 on Wednesday?
10:45 is the morning.
10:45?
Right.
That sounds good. That's usually, we're usually
Time
within.
certain's before that.
The Southwest Corridor project for 45 minutes and PP&R labor agreement.
Steve, could we flip those two? Southwest Corridor, just put this first.
I
have a
don't
feeling-
know. I mean, it's, what I'd have to ask, I have to figure out if staff could, and others would need to rearrange their time.
Let's not do it.
I suspect so,
Let's-
but
I think we have electeds. Let's grab 10:45 time certain on Wednesday as a control date. If for some reason the council needs to reschedule, people will be notified, but let's grab 10:45. And if history is any guide, it's likely the time certain would start a little after 10:45. But I would encourage you to come at 10:30 just in case. It will not be heard before 10:45, but it will likely be heard a little bit afterwards. Commissioner Fritz would then, as the proposer of the amendment, work with her colleague and staff and the applicant to work out an amendment. And that amendment, Commissioner Fritz, ideally would be posted how soon before the next hearing?
Whenever we can do it. I can't tell you.
Ideally, we'd have it the day before at least so we could post it so people could see it. And are there any other questions for this panel?
So then, Mr. President, there's 2 issues that I think are compelling that I'm wondering if, obviously, we're not going to get everybody happy with the whole thing, but there's 2 things that I think we might be able to do a little something with. One is that corner with the building in the the current slipway, and then the second is the treatment of the Plaza 2 and the signage for the colony and the appearance that it's shared with the colony as well as shared with the new development. And so maybe as part of the discussions, we could just brainstorm to see if there's anything that could be done with those 2 issues. I'd like to have some options to be able to explore that, whether we can or not. Maybe challenging. But certainly with the issue with the colony, there should be something that we can do to make sure that the other adjacent property owner has their needs met.
Let me be clear, by council process, those discussions can occur by right. Whether there is an agreement that comes to council that has a majority of vote is to be determined. If a council colleague feels strongly about it, I think that should be part of the discussion. And if there is some proposal that ultimately the sponsor Commissioner Novick wants to bring forward, that will be PBOT's decision. We'll encourage that discussion, and there's nothing in our rules which precludes that discussion, because we're going to a second, and a majority of council determines whether we vote next week or not in any event.
We would vote on the amendment, and then we'd have to pass it to second reading the week after anyway.
Well, that's right.
And I learned recently that it requires 4 votes for a street vacation, because you're all right, public right-of-way is an extremely important thing. I'm delighted. Usually street vacations, Commissioner Novick cares about them because he's in charge of PBOT. All the great staff care about them. I care about them all the time, and I really appreciate that everybody else here cares about this one. And you can see why, right? Because it's public right-of-way. We want to make sure that we don't give it away, that we invest in something else if we're going to not have it anymore.
I want to join my colleague in just observing that in the course of this, I've noticed that it sort of unpacks as a whole suite of issues, which are the issues that we're debating as the city is going through some growing pains. And every one of these issues has traction and is current and is real. And I want to thank everybody for the thoughtfulness of their testimony and the time. Without objection, Steve, we will, final word?
I just wanted to make sure that everybody watching at home understands that what Commissioner Fritz just said suggests that if you want to make her happy, come and testify on all future street vacations. That will not necessarily always make me happy, however.
Well, we do have another humdinger next Thursday afternoon. If anybody would like to join us, that's going to be fascinating too.
We may be limiting the testimony in some of those street vacations. They're otherwise done on consent.
They're important.
So, without objection, this matter goes to a second reading. Carla, time certain next Wednesday at 10:45?
Correct.
And we are adjourned. Thank you all.